if you want.
Okay, so we just started recording. Yeah, Sahana, it would be great if you can introduce her.
So we have Sanaa Syed presenting on pitching your projects and how to make your presentations good for a hackathon. So,
all right, thank you for that. So hi everyone, this is a workshop about how to present your project at the end of the hackathon. And I'll be walking you through what you should have in your presentation and how to create a pitch that will be memorable, just like Sahana mentioned. So basically 50% of your project is conveying it to other people, whether it be judges, a virtual audience, or any other viewers. So a little bit about me is that my name is Sanaa Syed. I'm a dev degree intern and a backend developer intern at Shopify. And by the way, if you're interested about dev degree, there is a panel tomorrow at 10 a.m. PST to get to know more about the program and the company. It's a little self-promo there. And I'm also a rising second-year computer science student. And if you want to connect with me, my LinkedIn is also there. So these are a few components that I think make up a good pitch, and in no way do you need to use all of these, but these are the main slides, the main components that I think create a good presentation. So that includes the title slide, team member introductions, problem statement, your solution, the demo, monetization methods, future steps, and closeout. So right now it looks a little daunting, but you can definitely get this done in under 3 minutes, and I'll show you how. And also the ones marked with like a red asterisk are optional, but they're pretty good to have. The first thing is the title. So obviously the title is the first thing the judges or anyone viewing your presentation sees. And so it's usually like your team name, which is essentially your brand. So it can be 1 or 2 words, nothing lengthy, something that describes your team. Some examples that I've used is Carbon Ninja, Trash Dash. I've also seen Elixir, Audify, so anything short and simple that people can pronounce. And so if you want to know if something that you've created is pronounceable, I would say like talk to your family members and like basically show it to them and like ask them to pronounce it. If they can, then you're good to go. And also you can have 1 photo max if you want. This is like something that you can do if you have like a logo. Again, this is like optional. So if you have extra time, it's also pretty good for branding. So it creates like a branding for you. And as for starting, using a title slide or intro, you need to like start bold. So some examples for starters could be we are, and then followed by your team name. So for example, we are Carbon Ninja. Or you can even start with like a rhetorical question as well, but you got to be careful with these because you got to make sure it's not like a yes or no question. Because if it is a yes or no question, like it's not really getting the audience or the viewers or the judges to think. So for example, if the judges do respond like no for your question, it kind of renders the rest of the presentation not really relevant to them, which is kind of difficult to pitch the rest of the project to them. And also I think that one person should kind of like lead into the next slide. The next slide would be introducing yourself and your team members. So you are the creators behind the project. So this is pretty important to have, especially since it's virtual. So people want to know who created the project. So having a photo of yourself and including your name, grade, and social media, such as LinkedIn, email, anything that people can contact you with, but limit it to 1 just because this is like a short intro that a lot of people won't really see for too long, maybe like 15 seconds. And again, socials are optional, but it allows people to reach out to you, which you probably do want regarding your project. So for that, are there any questions about the introductions? Am I allowed to, like, is there a chat feature?
Yes, there's a chat. Yeah.
So,
we're also monitoring the chat just in case.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just like let me know if there's any question or something. Okay, cool. So there's no questions for the introductions. I'll just move on to the problem. So after the introduction, you want to like go ahead and explain the problem that you're trying to solve. Using transition slides like this can help break up the presentation into components and give the audience a sense of what you're currently talking about so they can follow along. If you're doing a video, for example, and not like going through the traditional presentation route, it's good to say, here's the problem or something like that so you can break up the presentation so it's not a big jump from the intros straight into the problem. And again, just like having something like this where it's just like problem. So for the problem statement, you're basically explaining the problem you're trying to solve because you because you created or you're currently creating a project that solves a real world problem. So the 3 routes that you can take are having a case study, statistics, or even diagrams. Case study is basically having a person represent the problem. This can be a totally fictional character you chose, but you're trying to use this person as a model for your problem and how your project is the solution. So you want to first start off by stating who it is. And if you look at the top right corner, I have used like Finn from Adventure Time and given him the role of an adventurer. This person also acts as someone from your target audience because it's also an important factor in your projects. And a target audience is basically who your project is created for. So this could be like Filipino girls from California or anything like that, but it needs to be specific. So if your target audience is everyone, it's far too general and not everyone could be experiencing that problem. And also during a case study, you want to list that fictional character or that character that you chose and their wants. So for example, here I have, he wants to have a backpack that will hold all his findings. And so his problem is that he doesn't have enough space in his backpack. Essentially, that's how you want to create a case study that you will follow along to your solution. Also, statistics are really good to have to show the impact of the problem, but be careful with this because it must be reputed, which means that it has to be from a credible source that is in fact true. So this can be like stats from the government or anything that you find that is reputable. And so this is basically you collecting data and kind of portraying why it's a problem. So the bigger number of percentage, it also shows how relevant the problem is. Again, only if this is like applicable in your like problem that you're trying to solve. And so as for diagrams, a table is also a form of a diagram that you can use. And it's commonly used if your project is done before. I noticed that often judges do ask what makes your project different or even better than previous renditions of like this project. So this is good to have to show information on competitors and why their app like isn't sufficient enough for the project at hand, for the problem at hand. So it can be something that you include at the end of your slides or even like an index or anything like that if you don't want to address this, since you only have 3 minutes to present. So it can only be applicable if you do have competitors. So if you don't, it's not really as useful for you. And you can use this table to compare a data. So for example, here I have like competitor project 1 that has feature A, but doesn't have feature B or C. And then competitor project 2, it has feature B, but not A or C. And so your project essentially could have like feature A, B, and C, which makes it like better than the other projects. So if no one has any questions for the problem statement section, I'm going to move on to the solution. So for this solution side, you can basically say project name in your one-liner description of the project. So make sure you can summarize your project in 1 line, which is like quick, short, and simple, because a long explanation should be saved for your demo. And essentially, I have like another transition slide, and transitions are recommended before you present your problem, solution, demo, and after your demo, and don't like overuse them. It just like kind of helps break up the presentation as mentioned before. So an example of showing your solution is laying it out on a phone. As you can see here, I just have like an iPhone, or you can even use like an Android or anything like that. And it basically shows a mock-up of your app or project or anything that you created. It's mainly used for apps. If you created one, and you can create like a fake mock-up if it's not functional, which is totally okay as well. And it's good to show what it looks like in action. If you have if you have like a website that you want to lay out, it would be good to show it in action on the desktop. And also if you're not really creating an app or a website, or your project doesn't have a view portion to it, then you can also explain your solution in words as well, which is totally okay. And as for your demo, this is basically the main portion of your entire presentation. It's time to show off how your project works. It doesn't have to be functional again, but do show off your project. This is where you spend the most time because you've spent so many days creating something and you want to show every single feature and aspect of it to the judges. This is where you highlight what you did, what you used. So any coding languages that you use, whether it's like Ruby, HTML, CSS, any good features you got working, basically bragging and boasting about your project. So this slide and the next are optional, but there are questions that I have been asked by judges at hackathons, and I find they're pretty important to have. So monetization is a pretty big word, but it basically means how are you going to make money from your project? And so you're probably wondering, why would you need to make money from or for your project? Essentially, a lot of projects, apps, websites, and such need funding to run because they can't always be maintained by being free, since in the end, you'll be spending money out of your own pocket. Some ideas to make money from your projects are ad revenue. So, you know, when you like go on a website and you see ads, basically that you promote like paid ads, selling data to government or company. This comes with privacy concerns and depends on the project and problem at hand, but it's also a good way to make money off of your project. Sponsorships, so just like hackathons, some sponsors for this hackathon, for example, are Product Hunt, Shopify, and Hackbuzz. So you want sponsors to help you fund your projects and so that you can improve it and keep building on it. Next steps are essentially what are the next steps of your project if you want to continue it. This is just like a food for thought question that will highlight what your future motives are for the project. Some examples are features you didn't get to implement due to lack of time or resources, improvements on the project. Do you want to improve a feature you already created? What about the look of it? Or like if you spend time making it more functional than making it look nice. Implementations of the project, if your project is non-functional, which is again totally okay. And then also an increased target market. So it's your current target market just for your city. Like if you want to expand it to the entire state or anything like that, that's totally okay as well. And finally, you want to close out. This is a chance to say who you are and leave the viewers with something memorable. So it could be like a slogan you created or a picture of your logo. Again, branding is pretty good. Something that people can remember your project by. And the way you start and end your presentation is important. So it's vital to close out just as strong as you started. As for some other minor tips, you've probably heard this one before, but the less words you have and more visuals you have, the better. Often people can only focus on what's on the screen or what you're saying, not both. So choose wisely what you want to show and what you want to say. Also, remember you have 3 minutes to pitch your project and your demo should be the main highlights. So make sure you spend the most time in your demo, whether it's filming how to use it, like going through it step by step. This would be like a good 1.5 minutes of your project, I would recommend. So essentially, demo is the biggest thing that you should be focusing on. And you need to use these tips as a guide. Don't have to strictly follow any of these tips, but they're just kind of like a guide for you to have. Presentation is 15% of your judging criteria, so it's also important to focus on it and make sure that you do put in effort into your presentation and adapt to a presentation you're comfortable with, whether that's video or presentation slides or anything like that, using a pitch deck from Canva, anything like that. And make sure your submission is a video that includes a demo, explanation, and summary. And with that, submissions are due August 6th by 12 p.m. PST, so good luck. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. And feel free to add me in the mentorship channel if you do want feedback on your pitches or anything like that.
So if you guys have any questions for her, then you can just type it down in chat, or you can just unmute.
A channel to the mentorship channel? I think if you can go to channels on Slack and then look up mentorship, I think you can join it.
So I think I can send the link to that. If you join the Slack, you should be able to join.
If you're not on the Slack, the join link is on Taikai.
Oh.
Just huge join chat button.
Yeah.
And so Anika asked, for the video, do we screen record our slides with a voiceover, or that's totally up to you. But if you want to go with presentation slides, then yeah, the best way would probably be doing a screen record and then having a voiceover and maybe including a video in between for your demo. And Jenny asked if our website doesn't really need to use funds or make money, would that count against us? Definitely not. I don't think it would count against you. If it's not relevant to your project, it was optional, like monetization and stuff. So if it doesn't really apply to you, you don't have to talk about monetization. It wouldn't count against you or anything in judgment criteria.
You said you participated in hackathons before, right? Could you maybe describe some of the projects you worked on to the attendees so they can, maybe if they don't have any ideas yet, they could I don't know, brainstorm?
Yeah. So one of the hackathons that I attended was a cryptocurrency hackathon. And so I created this app called Carbon Ninja that I did mention in the slide a little bit. And it was basically tracking carbon emissions for car companies, because our problem was that we found that there was like a scandal that happened a couple years ago where some companies were covering up the amount of carbon emissions some cars give out, just to reach like the country standard. And so we found that it was a problem. And so we created like an app that you can see the data for carbon emissions that a car gives out before you go out and buy it. And it's also like publicly accessible to basically any car owners, manufacturers, basically anyone. And yeah, that was one of the things that I did. I also did a project called Trash Dash, and it was using artificial intelligence to essentially, we were going against the problem that there's a lot of food wastage in the world. And so, especially in school cafeterias, when people throw things out, our goal was like using AI to track which foods are thrown out a lot more than other foods. And so basically we were checking which food is thrown out more, and then we would like send the data to like cafeteria owners and stuff. And Jenny asked, okay. If there's any other questions, I can totally answer that for the next couple of minutes.
Also, totally unrelated, but a few people like privately chatted me for the Slack link, so I just added everyone. If you haven't joined that. So we have until like 3. So if anyone else has any other questions, if the presentation is done, then you guys are free to leave. And if you guys have any questions, then we'll just stick around and try to answer them.
And if you have any other questions, you can like reach out to me on Slack or anything like that. Yeah, probably like respond pretty quickly.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you for hosting a workshop. Yeah, I'm gonna end the recording now.